one sound.
And honestly, we don't even have a name for this yet, so it doesn't really matter.
Jeff and Aaron on movies.
Talking about movies.
And we're off.
So, this week, I don't know, I think you saw it, right? The Joker
Oh, yeah, I saw
movie preview trailer. Okay. So that's what stemmed, I have all these notes, right? So it has nothing to do with me breaking down and telling you that this is a terrible movie that's coming out or a commentary on the performance, because you can't really judge it because it's just a preview. But
That showed like nothing, too.
It showed very minimal.
Yeah.
It kind of gave you a glimpse into what they're working on. It's probably early stages of editing, and they were like, hey, we need to put something out, so why don't you just chop something together real quick?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's all it was.
People were excited about the pictures we sent out. Let's show them 30 seconds of a film.
Let's put something out a year ahead of time. They've been doing this for years now, where they tease these movies that we know people are going to want to see or they're going to want to shit on.
Yeah.
And they put it out so early. But I'm looking through the cesspool that is Facebook and Reddit and pretty much everywhere that this there you can make a comment, and there's people that are just immediately comparing all of the Jokers and saying that this one looks terrible or this one looks like it's going to be great or what have you. And so you and I have grown up in different little time frames. I mean, I'm not that much older than you, but
no, but in terms of like how you're consuming particularly superhero content, it might as well be two very different eras.
Right. So my wife's favorite Batman film is the Keaton Batman, the Tim Burton Batmans. Mm-hmm. And for me, I love those as well, but I distinctly remember, and not that this is a good movie and not that I'm proud of it, and it's not my favorite, but I distinctly remember watching Batman Forever like 1,000 times.
Yeah.
And the amount of toys that they made for it was just like bombardment.
Yeah.
I had every toy that was out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so what was your...
Yeah, I mean, I was actually going to say that one too. That was the first Batman Forever, because that's the one...
I think it was geared more towards children because it was kind of cartoon. Are you talking about Batman and Robin?
Yeah, actually, I was about to say Batman and Robin was the first one. I mean, I saw Batman Forever, but that one was a little bit before. Batman and Robin was the first one that I remember seeing. But the movie that really got me into Batman was The Dark Knight, because I remember being very impressionable, and that came out the summer in between 7th and 8th grade. So that came out the summer that I was going into 8th grade.
And so I was in high school.
So I went and saw that with a girlfriend at the time, and I remember walking out of the theaters, and it was like way over my head.
Yeah.
Was not ready to see that. I was not ready to digest that kind of material. But then because I was a kid, I got swept up in the Heath Ledger's dead, it's the best. And I remember seeing it again and had a different mindset now because of the whole, everyone was like, it's the best movie ever. So afterwards I was like, it's the best movie ever. And I was obsessed with it for the longest time. I think that was really that started to plant the seeds of wow, movies are really cool and maybe you'd want to do that one day. So that was definitely the first one. But after that, I became obsessed, and I watched everything I could get my hands on Batman related. Not just the movies, but also the cartoon movies that they made. They made a bunch
they
Mask
made a bunch
of the Phantasm.
Of adult cartoon movies.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't remember which one it is, but it's a 2-part series, and I happened to just catch a portion of it on HBO or something one late night, and Joker's running through a carnival or something like that, and he's just straight up killing people. Yeah. He's just shooting folks down, and he's laughing, having a grand old time.
I've seen that.
And Batman's chasing him down in the Tunnel of Love or whatever, and ends up killing him in the Tunnel of Love. Oh, sorry, spoilers.
That's one of the more, because that was based on a graphic novel that they did, and that's one of the more
down and dirty, man.
That got me thinking. I think. Because that's one of the more famous graphic novels in general. And it's funny that you bring that up, because I was going to bring that up when we started talking about the Joker movie. I kind of think Todd Phillips is pulling some things from that story. I don't want to say anything about the story because it potentially spoils some things for people out there. But it's a really good story. And I mean, that was the first Joker origin story because Tim Burton made all that stuff up about the Joker because that was not in the comic books.
There was never, and that's the big point of contention for me is everybody's like, I don't think we should be making a Joker origin story because the mythos of the Joker is that there is no origin. He's an everyman. He's the bad guy. He's the anybody could be this guy that breaks and then just wants to destroy things and see the world fall apart.
Yeah, it's kind of the beauty of it.
And for him to have a defined, it was a guy that got made fun of and he was a little weird and then he just lost his shit one day. And here we are. Yeah. Like it just feels like
kept progressively losing his shit more and more.
It just takes away from it.
I'm kind of like, I'm not 100% sold that it's going to be a true origin story, like in terms of like the stuff we've seen from Marvel and the stuff we kind of saw in Aquaman. I don't know if you saw that or not, but I mean, it's definitely more of an origin that we've ever seen before. I don't know. Actually, before we go any further, I definitely have to say this. All of my thoughts on this movie, this upcoming Joker movie, should be taken with a grain of salt because Joaquin Phoenix is my favorite actor working right now.
I freaking love him.
Yeah, I think he's the best. Next to him and Ryan Gosling, 1A, 1B, best actors working right now.
I really want to watch Sisters Brothers, and I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. But one of the movies that I keep going back to, it's a very melancholy movie that just like draws me in, is Her. And I think that his performance in Her is one of his best ever.
I was dating a girl at the time when that came out, and I remember her, this is before I really got into him and really, really got into movies, and I remember she wanted to see that movie so bad. I was like, I don't want to see that movie. Looks like shit. That movie looks so dumb. I remember finally watching it. I cried like 4 times. Like, I mean, it's like, and it's one of my favorite movies. I mean, it's just, I mean, Spike Jonze or however you say his name, I mean, that guy is just, he is on some next level shit when he wrote that. Like,
yeah, but I don't know. It was something about that concept. But just his portrayal. That's why I have confidence in the fact that he's going to take on the helm of the Joker in some capacity, whether it be an actual origin film or if it's just a completely otherworld type film that they're trying to pull bits and pieces from the mythos of Batman. But I think he's going to do a good job with it. But that brings me back to the whole comparison thing, is that if it is going to be an Otherworlds movie or if it's going to be an origin movie or what have you, people do this thing where they compare things to death and they take the joy out of enjoying a new thing.
Yeah.
Like, you got to think about, especially movies that involve characters that have been around forever. When these movies come out, they're being introduced into a whole new group of people. Yeah. There are probably people that don't know who the Joker is, has never seen. This is popping their cherry on the Joker.
Yeah.
And so, from that standpoint, if you had the vision from those eyes, not having the comparison of all of those other movies, and this is the first time that you're seeing the Joker, whoever that is, you can enjoy the movie for its own merits. I don't understand why people need to go back and say, we're going to compare it to every other thing that has ever been created in the history of the world. Because if you do that, then you can go all the way back to freaking plays that were done in Rome. You know what I mean? There's probably a character that's similar to the Joker that was in a play that somebody could say, they did it better.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly. I remember watching The Dark Knight with my grandparents when that came out on DVD, and my grandfather, like, he did that, what you're talking about, is the first reaction was like, man, the Joker in the first one was so much more realistic. I'm like, what was realistic about him riding on that balloon, like, as gas sprayed? Like, really, that was more realistic than when he played
Prince playing down the street of Gotham.
Exactly. Like, what was more realistic about that? I mean, it's just different, and that's the thing that gets me excited about this movie and anything, honestly, for the most part, anything that DC puts out, because they're obviously trying so hard to be different than Marvel. Like, I remember the Batman vs Superman movie. I was so excited about that because it was a very clear, choice to make, that they were trying to do something that was way off of what Marvel was doing. Not to shit on Marvel at all. They've all got me wrapped around their finger. I'm going to see the movie.
I'm going to
see
it no matter what.
So, but like, I like that this is an opportunity to go to the movies and see something that's still in a genre that I love, but is completely different than what the competition is doing. That's awesome.
And that's what I feel that DC needs to step up and do. Is they've been given this helm from the Nolan Batmans of, we can play this dark universe, we can play this brooding, dark kind of universe, and build from that. And that's honestly where they should be coming from, because honestly, the cartoony, like, root for the good guy hero type thing is going to come from Marvel, and they've already got it on lock. They're already doing it.
It's Disney. Come on,
it's Disney. They're gonna sell their toys. Like,
exactly.
They're gonna do that. You can tap into a different market. You could start doing your R-rated DC, Marvel, DC comic book movies.
And that's not to say that you can't take little things that Marvel's done and almost created in a way. I mean, not 100%, because I'm sure that there's other movies that have Easter eggs, quote unquote, but like I didn't know anything about Adam Warlock. So at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy 2, when I watched it with this guy, he was like, "Oh, dude, Adam Warlock, that's so cool." I was like, "I don't know anything about Adam Warlock." And then he told me about it, and I read about him online, and then watching it back, I'm like, "That's dope."
Yeah.
Like, let's see some stuff like that in DC movies. Like, dude, there could be one scene in this Joker movie where it's just a hint at Two-Face or Penguin
or anybody else.
Anybody.
There's
like,
so many,
dude, that's a thing.
There's so many, and it's a bit fan service, but at the same time, people look for that stuff. They eat it up. They love it.
Anything that's going to get people doing stuff like this, writing articles like this, like it's not a bad thing. At worst, it's not a bad thing.
Right. I mean, as long as it's not done in a hokey, forced way, which they've done in the past, where they kind of just shoehorn shit in, where you're like, did you really need to say that, or did you really need to make reference to that?
Yeah.
Like, as long as they do it in an organic way, like it comes up in like conversation where it's like you blink, you miss it, or whatever.
Yeah,
I love stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the whole comparison of remakes thing. So, like, if you take a movie, like, the one example that I wrote down was, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but Evil Dead, Bruce Campbell.
Yeah, I know them. I've seen a couple of them.
Okay.
There's like 30 in there.
No, there's not a whole lot. There's the original 3, and then there's the remake.
Oh, okay.
But interesting stuff, because I was at a convention that Bruce Campbell was at, and I'm sure he's done this like 1,000 times. I'm not anyone special, but he was doing, right before the remake that came out in, when was it? I didn't read, 2013. So right before that remake came out, we were at a convention. He's talking about, like, making films and the history of film, and him making this new film, and how they got the guy that directed it, and blah blah blah. But he was talking about.
Is he just talking? He's talking this to you personally, or is this a panel?
This was a Q&A that he was doing, and I filmed it. I've got it on my YouTube channel, so if anybody wants to watch it, it's actually really good. But he was talking about the original Evil Dead and how, they did it on a shoestring budget, and they had to make their own props, and like the stuff that, like, it's going through the forest is done on a motorcycle. Like, they had to strap the camera to the motorcycle and like drive it through the house and stuff. Like, all this stuff was just like, if they mess something, because they're renting cameras and stuff, if they fuck it up, then they're gonna owe money for these cameras and stuff. So, like, all the blood effects and stuff they had to do themselves, and everything's practical effects, and all of it's just outrageous and ridiculous.
Which probably is another reason why people love it so much.
And they put so much effort into it, but the weird thing is, when they got distribution for it, they gave up the rights to their own film. So that's why everybody's so confused when the second one comes out, because it's not some of the same characters, and it kind of looks like he's going back to the cabin, which is really weird. Like, why the hell would you go back to it? But it's essentially the beginning of that film is recapping the first film with different people playing the same characters, and then they continue on with the same story, essentially. So it's really weird and off-putting. Like, if you watch the first one and the second one, you're kind of like, what the hell? And then everybody's favorite is the third one. My wife's going to kill me because I can't think of the name of it right now. The one where he travels back in time. I got my boomstick. Like, yeah. And people asked him like what his favorite movie was, and he of course he was like, "Which one was my favorite, or which one was my favorite to make?" Because they're two completely different things.
Yeah. Well, and then that having to give up your movie to get distribution is not new at all. Kevin Smith had to do the same thing for Clerks, which is why he can't make a Clerks 3 now, because he doesn't own the rights to any of those characters.
Right. It's so strange how they come in and just take your baby.
Damn you, Harvey Weinstein.
More ways than one.
I know, right?
But the 2013 remake, my favorite thing that he said, and this should be said about pretty much all remakes, everyone kept calling it a remake. And he was saying, someone posed the question about, is Hollywood getting too remake crazy? Because it does seem that way. And he answered the question and said, well, am I going to call this a remake? I don't think this is a remake. I think it's just another Evil Dead movie. I don't think any of them are sequels or anything like that. I think that they're all just Evil Dead movies.
Kind of just live in the same universe.
Yeah. And I think that's how people should look at remake movies, is not compare it to the original, because you're never, especially if you're growing with the nostalgia of it, because there is this, rose-colored glasses that you're looking through the lens of when you were younger and you're watching that movie and you're like, oh, it was so great when I was 14. That was the best movie ever. And then they come out with a remake and you haven't seen that since you were 14 and you're like, oh, they're going to ruin it. And then you watch it and you're like, oh, they ruined it. And then you rewatch the one that you watched when you were 14 and they're like, oh, this is kind of shit.
That's so funny that you say that, because I literally just had a conversation about that the other day with my buddy, and he said, it's like, LeBron is going to ruin Space Jam 2. I was like, there's nothing he could ruin. Space Jam is a terrible movie. Like, I love Space Jam. I loved watching that as a kid, but there's nothing good about that movie outside of the fact that it's Bugs Bunny and Michael Jordan. Like, the movie sucks.
It was so damn hokey.
I know.
But
it's like, still cool. Like it looks
nostalgia.
Cool.
In my heart, I freaking love that movie because I was a kid and I saw it 6,000 times. Like, every time that a teacher was out for a day and you had to watch a movie, like, we'd watch Space Jam or something. Yeah. It was just one of those movies.
Yeah, Space Jam and Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I probably watched those movies more than anything else as a kid.
I was kind of scared of Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Like the ending with Doc, because I was used to watching him in friggin' Back to the Future, and then he comes out and he's all crazy and trying to kill people, and I'm like,
he's really menacing in that movie too.
Yeah, especially the end. The end when he starts going cartoony, it's just
that guy was
really unsettling.
He's a tremendous actor. I don't know if he's dead or not.
I think he's still alive.
He's a tremendous actor. Anyway, get back to the remakes.
I don't know where am I at? Yeah, I just love the fact that he was like, it's just another movie in this universe. It does I really think that people should start looking at it like that.
Yeah, it's
just another blank movie. It's not the continuation. Like, it is a continuation, but it's just another. You judge each movie on its own merit. When you have a series of 14 movies that come out,
Or just, hey, stop looking at it so selfishly and look at it from a perspective of
this is a new thing.
And somebody else wanted to do that, and they wanted to be able to play. It's not like when Tim Burton did Joker, it was like he had the rights on that character. Yeah. No one was ever going to be able to do it again. Like, Todd Phillips probably saw that movie as a kid and was like, I want to do that. And now he has a chance to do that, and he gets to play in somebody else's sandbox. That is super cool to me.
That's a dream for a lot of filmmakers. They're
we just had that conversation the other night.
If I could stand in, the position of a director for a Star Wars film, or I could do a freaking Die Hard film or something like that, I wouldn't care that it's the 47th one in the series or whatever.
Bruce Willis is 100.
I get to make my version of that. Yeah, I'll put him up on friggin' crutches and whatever. I'll prop him up in the corner.
And that's I haven't really seen a lot of other remakes do this, but and this wasn't a remake, but it was another Star Wars movie. But in Force Awakens, there's 4 or 5 scenes in that movie where it's it's a shot-for-shot remake of another scene. Mm-hmm. That was cool as shit. Yeah. When I saw that in the theater, I was like, wow.
That movie was very much a love letter to the fans that wanted to get back to the originals. And kind of an apology note for
the sequels,
for the 3 that came out in the 90s, whatever. Yeah, and again, it was one of those things where it wasn't like it was fan service, but it wasn't like super forced.
No,
like
not at all.
things happened organically, like them finding the Millennium Falcon. I was like, that's a cool little thing that you're just putting in there.
And the thing I always come back to is I don't even remember in context of when it happens, but there's this scene where the Millennium Falcon goes whoosh, like right over, just like how they did in Empire Strikes Back when he's coming out of the crater. I was like, God, that's so cool. Like, because I must have watched Empire Strikes Back a million times as a kid on VHS. It still is my favorite Star Wars movie.
Yep. You're not alone there. That's a lot of people's favorite.
I actually always like when somebody tells me their favorite Star Wars movie is anything other than that. I question, like, what, really?
But yeah, like when someone new takes the helm of anything that we have seen before, to not judge them on those past people, to not say that because this iteration is different, it's necessarily going to be completely worse. And then if we're talking about like the whole Joker thing, and we're going to go as far as including Jared Leto's Joker in the conversation, they filmed pretty much the entire Joker movie that's coming out, enough footage to put that out, when they did Suicide Squad. And then they chopped all of his footage out of and made him a caricature of what he was.
It's so funny that you bring that up, because it was one of the notes I wrote in my phone, something that I wanted to bring up. That was my first thought when I saw this movie, when I saw the trailer, was, I really wish we would have got to see Jared Leto's Joker, because I think he is a tremendous actor, and he would have brought something to the character, and he's not even in the movie.
Yeah.
Like, the scenes he's in is dumb. Like,
my point with that, with Suicide Squad, he could have been completely out of it, and it wouldn't have
made a difference whatsoever.
Did I ever tell you my rewrite for that movie?
No.
So I had an idea of taking basically the same premise setup that you've got. So you've got, and I don't know like half the characters' names because I don't care.
Yeah.
But you've got the chick with the heart, what is it, witch or something?
The Enchantress.
Enchantress. So instead of her going rogue and going with her brother and trying to do God knows what with all the moving
we never
shit.
Really figured it out.
We didn't really know what was going on there. And no one even remembers the brother's name. Do you remember the brother's name? No one remembers. He was the main villain. Yeah. I'm letting you know he was the main villain, and no one knows who the hell he is.
It's a huge problem.
That's a problem. But you take Enchantress, and this is how you get the Joker to play into this whole thing. So you've got the Suicide Squad that's getting put together, and they're obviously they have Harley Quinn is part of it, and they're about to go on some mission or something like that. And all of a sudden that gets curtailed because the Joker took the heart from Enchantress, and he's basically using her to his whims. And basically you get the same scenario in the city, but the conflict comes from the fact that Harley Quinn now has to decide between being in the Suicide Squad, which is going to end up with her dead if she leaves, and fighting against Mr. J.
Yeah.
And so that's where your conflict comes from.
Super smart.
It would have been such a better movie. That's what I was expecting going into the theaters. I was like, they're going to pin them against each other because he's not in the Suicide Squad. He's going to be on the outside looking in, and she's clearly in it. So they're going to pin them against each other because she's going to have to make a choice of whether or not she's going to kill him or not.
Wow, that would have been so much better.
That was my movie. So somebody make that one.
That would have been so much better. That is probably not the movie that James Gunn is going to make.
It's not going to be.
I remember I was seeing a girl at the time, and we went to see that movie together, and I remember walking out of theaters, and when we were driving back, I said, that was a classic Hollywood movie where I bet they signed Will Smith and Margot Robbie to be in that movie before it was ever written.
You know what? That very much felt like a Will Smith movie.
Exactly.
It felt like it was written around Will Smith.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. It was like, that's exactly how I felt, where it was like,
and I don't mind that. No, sell me that, though, because they didn't even put him in the trailers. I was like, we've got 2 glimpses of him in the trailers, and I'm like, it's 90% Jared Leto, and then the whole time it's Will Smith talking, making jokes. I'm like,
Yeah,
what did you sell us here?
Yeah, exactly. Will Smith could do, what was that movie he did with his son, the M. Night Shyamalan movie, like After Earth or something?
Oh, good Lord.
He could do 100 movies like that. I wouldn't care. I'll still think of him as, the guy from Men in Black. It's Will Smith,
Dude, there's definitely certain Will Smith movies, even even as terrible as it is, but like I've seen it 1,000 times, and it's one, if it's on TV, I'll watch it.
Wild Wild West.
Wild Wild West.
How did I know?
It's just one of those movies.
That's awesome. The big mechanical spider, so cool. It's so cool.
The racist quips that they make, and the back and forth that he has. God, I can't think of his name. The guy in the wheelchair.
What's his name?
I can't think of his name, and he looks so much different than what he actually looks like. Like in the film, he looks so different than what he looks like in real life.
Yeah,
I can't think of his name. But in the same regard of like the remakes and the sequels, there's a lot of movies that people watch, and if it's not giving them everything they need on the surface, then they don't like it. Mm-hmm. Or they say, I didn't get that, or that's a dumb movie. Like, that's the big thing for a lot of people, is they just call something dumb because they didn't understand it, because it wasn't spoon-fed to them.
Or if it doesn't grab their attention almost immediately, or like, it's
like slow build, slow burn movies. Like, because, I mean, one of your favorite films, No Country for Old Men, like, it starts out like good, like really solid, and then there's a little slow burn to get back to like the characters coming back around to each other and stuff.
And there's just like subtle moments. If you're not really paying, if you're someone who's going to be on their phone, like there's plenty of moments that you're going to miss where it's like, wow, that guy's evil. You know, like, holy shit, that guy's super menacing.
He's one of the scariest villains in any film that I've ever seen.
My grandmother she watched the Christopher Robin movie the other day. It's on Netflix. And I was like, oh, the movie's awesome. And she was like, I hated it. I was like, what? I was like, that was like the cutest movie ever. Like, how could you not like that? And she was like, it was kind of slow, and I just didn't I wasn't interested. I was like, in my head, I was like, you were probably like on your phone. You know, like you probably weren't paying it. I'm not saying that to be rude, but like if you're not really paying attention, you're gonna miss something.
I feel like it's not even an attention span thing. I feel it's like
not invested. I don't know.
It's like hard to grasp what exactly it is, because it's not that people need to be entertained 24/7. Because there are definitely shows that are similar to that people rant and rave about and say are like the best shows ever. And there are certain lengths of time within a season of a show that nothing is going on, but people will religiously watch that show. And I guess it's because it's it's a half hour, it's bite size, or an hour. It's bite size. It's something they can consume quicker, so they're willing to take 20 minutes out of that time frame and have it be slow, as opposed to something that's 2 hours or 3 hours long.
And when you have something that is an actual television show like Game of Thrones or Walking Dead, like there's something that's really missing in our lives today if you're not into shows like that moment of like, Sunday's coming, like the show's coming. Like Netflix is kind of taking that away. I'm not shitting on Netflix when I say this, but Netflix is kind of taking that away. Like, dude, when Breaking Bad was on, that was so cool. Like
DVR has done it too, because people will sit down and they'll DVR a whole season, and then they'll sit down and binge it. Yeah. Because honestly, we do the same thing. Me and my wife do the same thing, because if I'm watching, you guys
have a baby now, so it's definitely
it's just more convenient. Yeah. Because if she's up and we're trying to watch the show, we're not catching things, and I want to dedicate my time to it. I want to catch all the little subtle nuances that happen within a show or a movie. I want to be there for it. I've never gone to the bathroom at the movies. I don't know how anyone can go to the bathroom while they're at the movies.
The last time I did it was Superman Returns. That's how long ago that was.
I also think,
and you know what I missed? And this movie came out long enough, so I'm not spoiling it. So if you haven't seen it, whatever.
Shame on you.
I went to the bathroom at the part where the kid picks up the fucking piano.
What is that from?
Superman Returns.
Oh yeah. Okay.
When you find out the biggest part in the whole movie, when you realize that it's Superman's son, I got up, I came back, and my grandmother was like, "The kid picked up the piano," and I was like, "What? How?"
Oh shit.
That's a funny. We're talking about superhero movies, so whatever. We'll talk about this for a minute. That's a funny movie. Have you ever watched that one back?
I've watched it once, and it was when I was younger, so I don't remember a whole lot of detail.
It's funny to bring him up now because he's such a villain. rightfully so. Kevin Spacey is incredible in that movie, and you forget how great of an actor he was because he's such a villain now in our society. Right. But like, God, is he great in that movie?
That's a weird topic too, because of the whole there's a whole slew of people now that have been accused of certain things or basically proven of certain things that were at one probably would still be if they were allowed to perform. Yeah, are great performers, great actors, great.
My mom, when Kevin Spacey's story first broke, my mom sent me the story and was like, "I'm sorry, buddy," because she knew how much I was a huge Kevin Spacey. He was one of my favorite actors. Yeah, and I was like, "Damn, that sucks." Yeah, I guess we're never gonna work together.
And the last thing I saw him in was Baby Driver, and that movie is phenomenal.
So good.
I freaking love Edgar Wright, but it leaves you conflicted, but at the same time, I can still watch the movies. I'm not gonna cower in fear and cringe because I still watched Seven the other night. Look at how many musicians have done debaucherous things that we still listen to their music. Yeah. Absolutely horrible, horrid people that have made great, fantastic music that we'll still sing along to and tap our shoes to.
And we don't think twice.
We don't think about it at all.
I've had this conversation numerous times, and a thought creeps into my head all the time is that it really bothers me how much of a cult hero status that Kurt Cobain has gotten amongst my generation, and it's like that guy was not a hero. That guy was not a hero by any means necessary.
The amount of women that swoon over him still to this day, I'm like, okay, all right, that's your choice, but
whatever you're into.
But yeah, back to the movies that kind of they don't spoon feed you everything that you need. That people walk out and they're kind of like, what was that? I don't get it. I don't like it. Mm-hmm. Have you ever seen Enemy?
That sounds familiar, but I don't think I've seen it.
So, I believe is it Ryan Gosling? Hold on a second.
Wait, but Enemy, is that the one where
he's got a doppelganger?
Oh no, that's it's not Jake Gyllenhaal. Is it Jake Gyllenhaal?
It's Gyllenhaal.
Yeah, it's Jake Gyllenhaal.
God,
that's on my list to watch. I haven't watched it yet though, but the trailer was like whoa, what is this?
And even just the opening scene for it, you'll be like, what am I getting into? Because it comes so far out of left field.
What was that Gyllenhaal movie? Is kind of like that too, Looper.
That was JGL.
Oh yeah, that's Joseph Gordon. Yeah, that's Mr. Three Names.
Yep, Mr. Three Names.
Yeah, that was one of those movies.
So there's a thing on Reddit for Joseph Gordon-Levitt. This is just an aside, but there's a thing for him on Reddit that they Photoshop his face on giraffes, and it's called JGL Giraffes. That's Look it hilarious. Up. I don't know why, and it's still active to this day. I stumbled upon it the other day, actually a year ago. But yeah, it's
his IMDb page is pretty incredible. I didn't realize that he had been in so much stuff.
Oh, I know.
Until I was like, oh, what was that movie that he was in? And then I was like, oh, wow, he was a child actor.
He started
Oh, wow, he was
young,
in a lot of shit. Yeah.
But Enemy is one of those films that, it starts out super weird. It gets weirder, progressively weirder. But none of the story is the surface story. It's all subtext. It's all metaphor. The whole movie is a metaphor. So if you're going in, watching, and expecting to get a story that's from A to B and it's a linear story that you're going to be able to follow, you're not going to have a good time. I watched that movie because it was recommended by a slew of people. They were like, it's a really good movie. If you like film, you'll like this movie. And so me and my wife watched it, and we got to the end of it, and we looked at each other, and I said, we're too dumb to get this movie. And she agreed. She said, I'm done. Yeah, I don't get this.
I'll see you in 20 minutes. I'm going to go read a bunch of articles.
And I did. I researched it, and I got theories on it and tried to just break it down and all that stuff. And it was really smart. It was so smart that I didn't get it.
Yeah.
But I was entertained the whole time I was watching it. I was like, this is really engaging. It's really cool.
Was your wife entertained?
Yeah.
She was?
Okay. She loved it.
We
both loved it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think movies like that is a great test for how much you love movies, because I love movies. Mother. We talked about this before. The movie Mother is a lot like that as well.
People didn't know that it was a whole allegory about the Book of Genesis.
Yeah, and my mom was the same way. She was like, "I don't understand that movie." They said it was
stupid. You know what's funny about like movies like that? That movie. What was the movie that was entirely made on an iPhone recently? It was a horror movie. Where the chick is like, she's checked into the insane asylum and like her stalker's with her.
I don't know that one.
I can't think of the name.
When you said iPhone, I thought of Tangerine because they filmed that on iPhones.
No. But anyway, that movie and the Cure for Wellness, those 3 movies do this thing. There's probably more, but those are the 3 that pop to mind. They do this thing where it's like there's a situation that happens with characters like in like an insane asylum or somewhere where it becomes a situation where like, well, why can't you just help me? And they're like, oh, we can't help you. And it's just like you're so frustrated because it's like, why can't you fucking help them? Like, if I were in that situation and like somebody was like, I just straight up can't help you, and I would lose my shit. I would kill somebody. Yeah, that drives me nuts. It happens in movies and it kills me.
I just love it.
Because there was a situation with Mother where the people were sitting on the sink or the counter or whatever, and then she's like, get off the counter or whatever, and then eventually it breaks. I'm like, you motherfuckers, like she told you 8 times to get off the fucking counter. It just made me so furious.
Yeah. Oh man, I just love that about movies that they can. I don't know. Nothing else gets that kind of reaction out of me. Not in terms of entertainment. Actually, maybe sports does to a certain degree, but that's completely different. It just, and the idea that a movie is so easily defined in terms of it's a movie, but in that it can be anything. You know, does that make if that makes any sense? Like,
because you've. Okay, with books.
It could be any story, I guess, or it could be...
With books. So you've got... Somebody has written with intention on a page the thing that they want you to think of and to see. They have their intention. And then there's the interpreted meaning of whoever reads it. And they pull from it what they will. And you use your own imagination, and you don't have any audio, you don't have any visual. With film... You have somebody that writes a script, and then that goes to somebody that interprets that script, and then a slew of other people that interpret that script to create what you see on the screen. And then you have an editor that takes all of that, cuts it down to what he thinks it should be and look like, and then it gets to an audience and then interpreted. So by the time you get it from page to screen, you're getting 37,000 people's interpretation of what this is going to be.
It's jumped through a lot of hoops.
Right. With a book, it's kind of more linear because you've got somebody that's refining an idea, rewriting, and then giving you what they intend to give you, and then you interpret it how you want it.
I think that's...
So with film, it's just like with the audio and visual aspect of it, you've got the obvious intention of what the original piece was supposed to be, but then you've got all of these other influences that are coming from it. So I think that's where like films get so much more complicated and complex. It's because you've got so many people that are involved in it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that intrigues me about them as well, in terms of like wanting to do that for a living, is because it truly, in a lot of ways, is a team sport, is a team thing. But who's the winners and losers outside of the guys who are making the most money? Yeah. You know, like the guy or the person who's financing the movies who stands to make the most money, that's like the true winner. Everyone else is a winner. Like, yeah, you're making some money, but it's really like, you know, Hugh Jackman wins when he gets to do something creatively rewarding. Like, that's the true success. You know, not that but Hugh Jackman's a bad example because he's making a lot of fucking money.
Yeah, when you get to choose to make the things that you want to make, you know, like instead of being forced to make a fluff piece movie that you don't want to do so that you can do the thing that you want to do, you know?
It kind of brings me to a point that I wanted to bring up with the Joker movie to tie it all back is like, I get that feeling from Todd Phillips in this movie where it was like, this is not something where an executive was like, let's do another Joker movie. Yeah. You know who we should do? Get the guy from The Hangover.
And you know what? The way that the film was shot looks, from what we've seen, looks like an indie film. it looks like it was shot gritty, dirty, like
I got that
you're
feeling
not
from it.
Hollywood. This is indie film.
Yeah.
And that's what it feels like. And I think that if you're going to do a Joker film, then you're doing it service by doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I just think, I mean, and you look at go on Todd Phillips' MPD page, like IMBD page. He's made a lot of cool stuff. Like he's done a lot of stuff.
He's been involved in some stuff that
Yeah, he's done a lot of I don't know. I guess the moral of all that is I'll be watching the movie whenever it comes out and waiting for the next trailer, you know.
So I brought up Enemy, you brought up Mother. Let me just go through this little list that I've got here.
Yeah, I had a couple other movies that came to mind.
So for some people, Inception was difficult to grasp.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it was so difficult that it was worthy of being called dumb, but some people have. Some people don't like it. I recently saw Jordan Peele's Us, and that got a lot of shit talk.
I haven't seen it yet.
It got a lot of shit talk. And
looks good, though.
I think it was because people didn't understand the subcontext and they didn't understand how smart of a film that actually was. There was a lot of things that, like...
It seems pretty obvious from the trailers. Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot more to it.
There's a lot more to it. Like, it's really worth seeing, and there's a lot more to that than what they put in the trailer. Like, they actually gave away nothing in the trailer, if you can believe it.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. There's a lot. But that was, like, people's contention about that was the way that they handled all of the information that got to you. And then, like, Jordan Peele did a fantastic job of tying together just little bit pieces, things that he placed in the beginning of it, and then just bringing it full circle in the end of the film. And people didn't appreciate it. They thought that, like, those things came out of nowhere, but really they were sprinkled in the beginning of the film if you actually paid attention to the film.
Yeah.
And it was like, it was a really smart, like, under the surface film.
Well, you know what happened with that? A lot of that was, in my opinion, probably had a lot to do with the fact that there was a lot of people who probably didn't understand the first movie that much either. They probably didn't understand Get Out that much either, but they probably got sucked into the hype of it all. And then when Us came out, they were like, "Oh, we gotta see that!" Like everybody loved that, you know. It's like, yeah, no.
I think that
people see what people tell them to see. I think a lot. Like there's still
a very strange thing that happens in films, and like when I go to the theater, and it's rare when I go to the theater because of the baby, but when we're going for something that we know we want to see. But there'll be times where people are like standing in line with their tickets, and they're like, "What is this about?" Like they don't even know what they're seeing, and I'm like, why are you going to spend like $50 by the time you get your Coke and your popcorn and your movie tickets to go see it in Dolby Vision, whatever?
3D, yeah.
And you're going to spend $50-$60. Plus, you probably went to dinner before this, so $150 for a night out, and you don't even know what you're looking at.
Oh,
you don't even care.
That would. Oh man.
And people have that conversation, and I'm like,
never. Oh, it would be mind blowing.
So, Jordan Peele's Us. Shutter Island was another one.
That was one of the movies that came to my mind.
Yeah.
That was one of the first I saw in the theaters.
That was one that I didn't get to see in theaters, and I watched it at home, and I'm glad I watched it at home because there was a couple moments that I was like, rewind that, because I needed to see something again.
I remember walking out of the theater with my dad after that. My dad was like, "Did you get that?" I was like, "No." No. I mean, I was a kid, so
bro.
I was like,
I didn't get that. Memento, have you seen that?
Yep.
Okay.
That was another one that came to my mind.
Understandably so, just because it's a story told linearly.
Interstellar was one that came to my mind too.
Interstellar's on the list.
Christopher Nolan.
And you know what? They commended that movie for the amount of accuracy for like the gravitational force stuff that they were talking about, like how that affects time and stuff. They said that was actually relatively accurate.
Yeah, I remember reading online after that movie came out, some astronaut was like, "It's the most realistic space movie ever made." I was like, how did we know that? But okay.
Yeah,
whatever. You would know better than I would, obviously. Like,
he saw the singularity.
Yeah.
Arrival.
Yep.
Was another one, which is, I mean,
that was one of my favorite
It's understandable.
movies.
I thought it was fantastic. The Prestige, which I was surprised to find that people, like a lot of people, didn't get that movie.
Really? I was just about to say, what's not to good about that?
I guess they didn't get the whole idea that
that's the one with Christian Bale.
Yes.
And, yeah. Okay.
The clones thing or whatever. Yeah. I guess they didn't get that it was.
Dude, David Bowie is Tesla.
I know.
It's awesome.
I know.
It's so cool.
It's such a cool cameo. It's so cool. Donnie Darko, which is just a weird film in general. I understand why people wouldn't understand it. It's kind of like a stretch. Like
that was one of the first movies where it was like I remember seeing that and then making everyone that came to my house after that see that.
Yeah,
like you gotta fucking watch this movie.
You gotta watch Frank. Black Swan, which I just saw last year for the first time, but it was one of those movies that. So I watched. I compare that movie to if you've ever seen Whiplash, because that's
one of my favorites.
It's the obsession of the artist, but he does it in a way that's metaphorical and over the top.
So funny story about that Black Swan movie. I was living in Virginia at the time when that came out, and there was an indie movie theater down the street from where we lived. And my dad wanted to go to the movies and wanted to see a movie, and I told him that we should see that movie. He didn't know anything about it. The only reason I wanted to see it is because obviously, I was a kid, knew about the kissing scene. And I remember we walked out of the theater, and my dad goes, "You wanted to see that just for that one scene." And I was like, yeah, of course. And he just goes, he was like, "All right, cool.
Dad's on board.
We're on the same page.
Dad's on board.
Yeah, we're on the same page."
That's nice.
You know me.
Bonding moment.
Yeah, right.
Birdman.
I still haven't seen that one.
That's another one that is. I just love the fact that they did it as pretty much a one shot. I mean, obviously there's cuts within there, but they make it seem like the whole movie is a one shot, which is really cool. But it has elements of like, is this reality or is this in his head? So there's moments where you're like not sure what's real, and they don't really explain it, and then the ending is somewhat ambiguous, but is also a metaphor. So it's one of those movies that people didn't get, but if you don't look at it as just the surface, then you can understand it, or just do a little research. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
That was a given.
And Annihilation. Have you seen Annihilation?
Yep.
What's so strange to me about that movie is that they didn't release it in theaters, did they? In the U.S.
I don't
or
think
did
so.
they?
Maybe. I don't remember.
If they did, it was a very limited release, and it went to Netflix like almost immediately. And what's strange about that is, like, in this era of women's empowerment, it's very much a woman-forward thinking culture now. They had an entire cast of strong, smart female leads that are going in to kick ass and figure shit out. And this movie flew under the radar. And like so many people have not seen Annihilation. And it sounds so strange to me to say that a female cast lead movie. It was one guy. It was what's his name from friggin' he's in Star Wars.
Oscar Isaac.
Yeah, that one. Mm-hmm. He's like the only guy in it, pretty much.
Yeah.
And he's in it for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, I was just about to say he's barely in it.
But you're following the female group the whole time, and how that just flopped and didn't get any notoriety is beyond me.
I think it was visually, I thought it was super cool, but it was kind of weird. Like, if you're not into that, like, it's going to be somewhat off-putting. Because I remember my mom was like, "Hey, did you watch this?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's dope. You gotta watch it. It's awesome. I don't know if you're going to like it, though." And then, like, I came up an hour later, and it was already off the TV. Yeah. Like, it just, if you're not into that. I thought the same thing. And Arrival was one of the movies that I thought of when we first started this conversation. It was like, that was one of those ones where even I was watching it knowing, like, 75%, how, when you get to the 75% part of that movie, you're like, it ain't, whatever I think's going to happen ain't going to be what happens. It becomes obvious at that point. But by the time it happens, you're like, well, fuck, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
And that was
Yep.
awesome,
Yep.
and I want to cry now. Like,
There's a lot of air to that movie, and that's that whole thing about people saying that it's a slow movie or it's a slow burn or whatever. I feel like there's a lot of air to that movie, and I think people mistake that air for being dead space and not being something that means something. Like, they take a long time going up into the spaceship, of taking that crane piece and going up into the spaceship for the first time when they're ascending into it. And they do that on purpose. Like, everything in a movie is done completely on purpose. That's to build the tension within you of the tension that they're feeling.
I was just about to say, I mean, that's so you understand that, like, hey, guess what? They're going up a spaceship,
We're going
and it's
into
like
a damn spaceship right now. That is
and it's not one
floating
we
in the
built.
middle of fucking nowhere.
Yeah.
And guess what, motherfucker? Halfway up, the gravity shifts, and now we're standing sideways, and the ground is that way. But I don't know. I guess that wasn't enough for people. They needed it to happen.
Well, I mean, I think
linear and just.
A lot of those people, when you play a character that becomes an iconic character or becomes a huge part of whatever our, whatever the conversation is about the movie, like Jeremy Renner is not Jeremy Renner anymore for a lot of people. He's Hawkeye.
Oh, yeah.
Just like Chris Evans will forever be Captain America. For a lot of people, every time they see Daniel Radcliffe, it's Harry Potter.
That's what's so smart about Birdman. I know you haven't seen it yet, but Birdman makes pretty much a commentary on Keaton's career being known as Batman.
Yeah.
So it mirrors that, where he was like, his character was in this Birdman movie, and everybody knows him for being Birdman. And so, like, people keep asking him about that, like, throughout the film, and, like, that's what he's known for. Everyone knows him for being in this comic book movie.
And it's one of the things that I found intriguing about that movie. The only reason I haven't watched it is because it's not on Netflix, and I think it was on HBO, but then it wasn't. No, it's not anymore or whatever. But, yeah, I mean, it's just... I love that idea, because I remember... What was the name of the movie? Daniel Radcliffe did this movie where he played an undercover cop that was, he went...
Oh, God. Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, but I know what you're talking about.
Went undercover in a white supremacist.
Yeah.
Dude, it's an incredible movie, and then he is a tremendous actor. And I remember talking about that with somebody, and they were like, yeah, I saw the trailer, but, like, I don't want to see Harry Potter play white supremacist. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, but it's not Harry Potter. Like, that guy is a tremendous actor.
Is great in Jungle as well, and I haven't seen that.
Like... Don't watch it on a full stomach. There's some, like... I mean, I'm very queasy, so there was some parts in there where, like, really made me uncomfortable, but, like, uncomfortable, like, where it's like, well, I guess I'm watching the rest of this movie.
Well,
like,
have you seen Green Inferno?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you can make it through that, or there's another movie called High Tension.
I've never seen that.
That's a foreign film. I think it's a French film. Yeah, both of those are just absolutely brutal, gross, like, just torture porn movies.
Yeah, Green Inferno was like...
Just watching people get eaten alive. Like,
I know.
Yeah.
Like, you're thinking, like... I remember thinking, how could someone come up with this? And then immediately thinking afterwards, well, I get how someone could come up with this. This will be the most terrifying thing ever. Like, yeah, like, think of the most horrible thing you could possibly think of.
Think of the worst way to go out. And they're going to put that on film.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I remember my mom watched that like a month or two ago, and she was like, oh my God, you didn't tell me it was so horrible. I was like, I didn't tell you it was good. Like, I didn't tell you that you should watch it. I
didn't recommend it. I said I watched it.
Yeah. I regretted watching it.
But yeah, that's another piece of the puzzle for when people watch movies and don't enjoy them, is the whole thing of looking for problems with it, looking for plot holes, looking for something to complain about, some sort of, the critic mentality of finding the wrong in the right.
Yeah.
And people really have that preoccupation.
And people are going to do that with the Joker movie.
And they're going to do that.
Yeah.
They're going to try and find things that are wrong, things that were different, or things that just don't fit the mold of what they've the expectations that they've set for themselves, because this is a movie for me, clearly.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't meet my expectations, then it's a piece of shit.
This is my favorite character. How could you do this to the Joker, Yeah.
And the assumption that characters are living in our world or living in the real world instead of living in the movie world
Yeah.
that they're being portrayed in. Like, people forget that these, like, okay, where the story picks up for Joker, he's a man that has lived his entire life up to this point that is the catalyst that brings him into the being of being the Joker. And people are completely forgetting that this whole world has existed that he's lived in. He was a child at one point. Like, you know, you don't put that into context of, like, this world exists and it's not this world.
Oh, yeah, it's a completely different universe.
Right.
You know what I was, it just popped into my head was, what if this is just the first one? What if we're going to see Joaquin Phoenix as the Joker again? What if we're going to see at the end of this, like, there's an Easter egg of Batman? What if there's an Easter egg of something?
I'm wondering...
what if, like, because there's no guarantee that this is a straight origin film. Not going to see that again. There's no guarantee.
I mean, honestly, we don't really
like,
know what it is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a great point. We don't even know that. We're not even 100% sure it is a true to life origin film. You know, we could see Joker at first, and he could already be on the downslope, and he's just kind of narrating how he got here. You know, like.
Yeah. I don't know. We don't know what it is.
Exactly.
It
Could be anything.
And that's the problem is, like, we take these previews and, like, there's an entire industry that's dedicated to it on YouTube where people take these trailer breakdowns and these, you know, here's the Easter eggs, here's what you missed, here's 12 things you missed in the Joker trailer, the Joker preview trailer, like.
And those videos get just as many views as, like, the trailer itself.
The fuck on.
Yeah.
You're making a living off of pointing out things in a 2-minute bite of a movie that half the shit might not even make it into the end cut of the film. Because frankly, that happens a lot.
Yeah, the Russo brothers just said something about it the other day where they were like, yeah, I mean, we released so many trailers, like, don't get your hopes up. Most of this stuff's probably not going to be in the movie.
Yeah.
Like, they've done that They did that with Civil War, too. Like,
it's just to keep you talking about it and to keep you speculating and...
It's a teaser.
Yeah.
They even
it's
said
to get you doing
trailer.
what we're doing right here, to have
Exactly.
you conversing with friends about it.
Exactly. Get you to share it with the caption, this is so dope. Or like, well, this is sucks. You know, it just gets people talking. That's all it is.
You would enjoy so many movies more if you go into the movie not having these preconceived notions, these expectations that you are setting for yourself. Because if you set those expectations, like if you take... Everyone's saying this is the best movie ever before you go into theaters and go to see it, and you're like, wow, this is the best movie ever. And you go and you watch it, and you're like expecting your version of the best movie ever, and then you come out of the theater and you're like, that sucked. It probably was a really good movie, but you set your expectations so high that you ruin the movie for yourself.
Yep.
So if you go in, you turn your brain off, you just expect to be entertained, and you take the world for what it is, and you don't look for those plot holes and those shortcomings and all of those things, and you just take, okay, here's the character, here's the story, what are they doing, how are they interacting, does it relate to anything in my life, find that connection, and enjoy the film.
Yeah, it's exact. Expectation is so important in going into a film because we talked about Batman, Superman before. My expectations for that movie probably ruined that movie because I remember saying that to my mom when I walked out. I was like, "There's no way that was going to live up to my expectations because I've been so excited about this movie for so long." But like, I mean, well, blah blah blah. Here's that, this, that, and that. But I don't know. It's a movie. Like, does it not look cool?
It's supposed to be a piece of entertainment. So if it ended up being that you just didn't like it or what have you, then it probably wasn't meant for you in the first place. And there's a lot of things like that. There's a lot of music that's like that, where it's like, okay, polka music is not meant for me. Yeah. It's just not. It's not my bag. Like I was not meant to listen to polka music. It's just not going to be one of those things.
But Weird Al loves that.
But oh my god, the man's down for it. Like
But you know, I told you before we started recording this that I watched it the other night, and what made me want to watch the movie was I was scrolling through and I saw that somebody, you know, sometimes you see on Facebook will let you know like somebody so and so commented on this. And I saw that somebody that I was friends with commented on a movie page, and their comment really got me thinking. It was like, you know, I'm going to watch that movie. Their comment was, my thoughts on movies are very simple. if a lot of people tell you it sucks, watch it.
Right.
Because either it really sucks and that's kind of enjoyable.
Right.
Or it's actually probably pretty good and a lot of people are stupid.
And you know what's funny about that is the reverse of the expectations thing. If you go into a movie expecting it to be dog shit terrible and you watch it, and even if it is dog shit terrible, you still end up enjoying it. You kind of like walk out of there like, well, it was terrible, but I kind of liked it, you know?
I remember seeing Ratchet and Clank with a buddy of mine when they made the movie, and I was like, dude, Sylvester Stallone was in that. That was awesome. And he was like, dude, that movie sucked. I was like, yeah, I know, but it was Sylvester Stallone in Ratchet and Clank. Like, that was cool. Like,
so that brings, that's perfect to bring up this final thought. I used to work for a guy that coined this phrase called popcorn movies. And what he defined as a popcorn movie is something that you come into, you don't have really much expectation for it to be, you know, fucking Orson Welles or anything, but you go in there and you grab your popcorn and you watch it and you shovel popcorn in your mouth and you're just entertained, and then you walk out of it and you're like, that was fun.
Yeah.
And I have a whole list of movies that are exactly like that. Shoot 'em Up. I don't know if you've seen that one.
Yep.
Crank and Crank 2. Ridiculous movies, but super entertaining.
That's funny. Crank is Bill's favorite movie. It's
really?
my buddy Bill's favorite movie. He thinks that's like the most incredible premise. And it is. It's a great premise.
It's entirely ridiculous and non-realistic. And it
kicks a lot of ass.
But it's so entertaining. Like, if you just turn your brain off for 5 seconds and just watch the damn movie.
I would watch Jason Statham fight anything, I suppose, though, which is great evidence. I watched him fight a shark, you know, a massive shark.
I just wanted him to say Megalodon at least 12 more times in that movie, and he didn't. He disappointed me. I had the expectation of Megalodon. Like, I wanted that.
When I saw Captain Marvel in the theaters and they showed the preview for Hobbs and Shaw, I was like, I haven't been entertained by the Fast and the Furious movies in years. I'm saying that.
That was
that
was next on my list. I've watched every single Fast and Furious movie in theaters because my wife is obsessed with them. But honestly, if you go in and you're just like, all right, it's going to be cars, it's going to be explosions, it's going to be guns, and it's going to be family. That's all we got.
Sweaty girls who are still attractive, you know, like sweaty, salty girls.
And just like some random song that gets stuck in your head that is like a dance tune and like girls' asses, and that's what you get. Like that's a Fast and Furious movie. My wife mentioned this today, and I kind of have to give it to her. Magic Mike.
Yeah,
it's one of those movies that it's not a good movie, but like if you just watch it.
Dude, I love that first one. I love that movie. It's a silly movie. You know, I don't want to watch it with my mother, but like, you know, I had a girlfriend at the time, and I had a girlfriend. We went and saw the movie. I had fun. You know, dude. There's 1,000 movies that are just like that, made 100% for dudes.
Guys.
What, like Girls Can't Get One? And it's Channing Tatum. Like, it's a cool story. Like, I don't know. I'm biased. I love Channing Tatum. Like,
I love Channing Tatum too. The Baywatch movie.
I didn't see that.
If you haven't seen that one,
I would just put all Rock movies in that.
Oh, The Rock. Just turn your brain off. No, but I liked him in The Rundown. I thought was a great movie. And then he needs to go back to. Have you ever seen Walking Tall? Mm-hmm. He needs to go back to stuff like that because I think he could do well if he actually took his time with stuff like that.
The only problem is like it's unbelievable for him to be anything other than an ass kicker.
Oh, the size of him now is because this was back when he was
he was a normal human
small.
Being. Yeah, I shared the picture on Facebook of him when he was in high school. I saw some page share it and was like, I said Dwayne the Pebble Johnson, and then it got me thinking. I was like, it really is like, so he was Dwayne the Pebble at one point, and then he was the Rock, and now he's the Boulder.
He's the fucking Boulder.
Like, he is so massive.
He's Mount Rock. Like,
what's that line that John Cena has in Trainwreck? I look like Mark Wahlberg ate Mark Wahlberg. That's what The Rock looks like now. Like, he looks like The Rock ate The Rock.
He ate the better parts of the WWE and just kept growing. Have you seen The Belko Experiment?
No. No, I didn't see it, but that was the one with Dave Bautista, and he plays the nerd. Is that it?
No.
No, I'm thinking of a different movie.
Belko Experiment, it's a office building, and they shut down the office building, and then they make everybody kill each other.
Kill each other. Yeah. I remember
That's
the trailer.
It's like a ridiculous premise, and it's kind of set up where the endings, to me, it's kind of like, eh. But at the same time, like, the whole time, I'm like, it's entertaining.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous, but this is entertaining.
Yeah.
Hardcore Henry.
That was a cool movie.
That was just, the way that it was done was really cool, but as far as storyline and stuff, it's been done 1,000 times before.
Yeah.
But
there's nothing original about it other than the way it was shot.
Yeah, that was the whole selling point of that movie, but it's entertaining to watch.
No, it's cool.
You definitely watch it for that.
It was almost like, to a point, I remember at certain points in the movie, you kind of get dizzy. Because it's like, I mean, you're...
Well, a lot of people that have, like, motion sickness and stuff said they couldn't watch that movie, or they can't watch movies like that because it makes them sick.
Yeah. I thought that was a cool movie.
Jumper in 2008.
Love that movie. Very guilty pleasure of mine.
It's not a great movie, like, cheesy dialogue, some terrible cheesy dialogue. But you have Samuel L. Jackson in it, which he can probably save pretty much any movie.
Blonde-haired Samuel L. Jackson.
Yep. And, well, I don't know. It's kind of like a superhero movie without being a superhero movie. It's kind of, especially when it plays from the fact that, like, he's a kid, that when, like, he gets it, and then he grows up to be an adult, and you kind of, like...
And you have
if you were a kid,
yeah, exactly.
What would you do?
That was the coolest thing about that, watching that. Maybe I was just happened to be at the right age.
It was 2008.
Yeah, when I saw that, I was 2008, was in 8th grade.
There you go. No, that's the perfect age
so I was
that.
like, dude, what if I had that? That'd be so
cool.
Like,
I would totally rob a bank, man.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd go in there and take that shit, too.
I always thought that was so cool.
Go surf in Hawaii. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Night and Day with Tom Cruise and Cameron Diaz.
I never saw that.
That's another one that's like, it's cheesy, kind of hokey, a little bit of action, but it's entertaining. It's got Paul Dano in it, too.
Is that the last movie that she did? She don't see her. You haven't seen her in a long time.
I don't know. I'd have to check her page. I don't remember.
No,
she did that. What is it? The Box.
Oh yeah, the box. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah,
I never saw it, but
Either
I remember
did
the trailer.
I got it spoiled for me, and I'm like, maybe not. Maybe not watch that.
I had a huge crush on her when I was a kid.
Freaking The Mask.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, she was a babe in that movie. God, I loved that movie when I was a kid.
I watched that movie a little too much when I was a kid. And didn't get a lot of the humor until I was much older.
I know, that was a...
That and When Nature Calls.
Oh.
That movie I saw like 1,000 times as a kid, and then I watched it like a couple years ago, like rewatched it and like actually paid attention to it instead of it just being on TV. And I'm like, oh man, my parents really weren't paying attention.
Yeah.
Either that or they were like, oh, it's going to fly over his head anyway. It did.
Yeah.
Like, it totally did. But I'm like, oh, this is not for children. The whole tent scene, oh mama, hey mama. I'm like, oh shit. I was a kid and I had no idea what was going on.
It's so bad. I actually just watched that for the first time like a year ago.
Oh yeah.
I had never seen that movie. Super funny.
Yeah. Going from watching it as a kid and through those eyes and then watching it as an adult is a completely different experience.
My parents were the same way. I think they either thought that I was going to go over my head or it was like he was going to watch it anyway. Like he's going to find a way to watch it. Like...
Funny thing about that is when the Scary movies came out, the first one, you remember there's a scene in it where there's like a glory hole or whatever, and Dick pops out and cuts the guy in the ear or whatever. So a friend of a friend told my friend's mom that it was okay for us to go see. There's nothing wrong with this movie. It's perfectly good to take kids to go see. I think we were in like 7th or 8th grade or something like that. And so...
Did you go with your mom?
His mom, my friend's mom. And so we went and saw it, and as soon as that scene pops up, we get this. The mom just, like, immediately looks at the other kid. She's like... We're like, oh shit,
you guys have
we're gonna die. No, we ended up staying for the whole... I don't know why she let us stay and watch the whole thing, but we watched the whole thing. And she was
like the most egregious
super pissed about it, though. She was so mad at him.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
But yeah, kids.
I know.
Watch your kids.
They're the
Watch your ratings. NC-17? No.
Was it?
No, it was R-rated.
I remember once I said something about a glory hole, like, in passing, like, as a joke. And my mom was like, "What's that?" And I was like, "Oh, Jesus."
Oh, Jesus.
I'm not telling you. I'm not, go watch.
Don't Google it.
Yeah, I think I said that. I was like, don't Google it.
Don't Google it, Mom.
Ask Uncle David. That's her brother.
What's a bukkake?
I saw Dave Attell once tell a joke. He said, "Geez." Talking about Philadelphia cheesesteaks. He's like, they're disgusting. That bukkake of cheese whiz on there. And I just, the fact that he used that word, I was like, oh my God, that's so gross.
I'll never look at Philadelphia the same.
I know. You just ruined
You've ruined Geno's for me forever.
Yeah, I know. It's like, that's so gross.
But yeah, that's my spiel. Just watch movies and enjoy them. God damn it.
Just watch them.
I don't, like, that's what this comes down to, is that we've come to the era of everybody, there's so many people making money off of this stuff, of being a critic and finding all these plot holes, and we've become obsessed with finding problems with stuff, that we forget that this is literally, like, people don't have to do this shit. They literally do this because they want to, I mean, obviously they make a profit from it, or else there wouldn't be a market for it, but it's to entertain you. Like, nobody intentionally goes out to make a shitty movie or write a shitty film or write a shitty song. They're writing something that they think is good. They're making something that they think is good and that people will enjoy. If I connect with it, I think that you'll connect with it.
Hollywood has become so privatized that no one's getting into this new. You know, in the 80s and the 90s, you could start your own production company and be a nobody and still get movies made. That's not happening nowadays. So if a movie's getting made, it's getting made by someone, yes, who's making a lot of money. Todd Phillips is a very rich man. But yet, he's also making this movie because it's something that he loves to do, because he wouldn't be here if it wasn't. No one's getting to that point who doesn't love or is not really talented. That's what I always used to say about Amy Schumer. People always shit on Amy Schumer. She's not funny. She's not funny. You don't think she's funny. She would not have ever gotten to that point if she wasn't funny.
Right.
Like, if she wasn't funny at all, she would have never gotten to that point.
Nobody would have given her the accolades that she's gotten so far if it weren't for something.
Yeah, exactly.
And
she's making
not my brand of humor,
laugh.
but, like, there are plenty of people that I know of that have bought her book, that freaking love her sense of humor, that love who she is.
For real, though,
it ain't for me.
Actually, even if you don't like her stand-up, you should read the book. The book's actually really funny. The book is way funnier than the stand-up, actually.
See?
Like, because she's, as you can imagine, a woman that looks like her doing stand-up comedy. She's had to deal with
I'm sure she's had an uphill struggle of bullshit her entire life.
Yeah. So,
but like you were saying, with like people breaking into Hollywood, I like to do this thing where, like, if there's an up-and-coming actor, or even, I'll do it with musicians and stuff too, I'll find out who they're related to, or what their parents do for a living, or like how much money their parents make. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes you'll find that either they come from a rich family, a connected family, or a family that does stuff in the same genre of what they're trying to do.
Or it's the complete opposite, and they came from not nothing.
And those are the exception to the rule.
Exactly. And I was going to use Matthew McConaughey as the example.
Chris Pratt.
The one, yeah, he's the one always.
Chris Pratt's
another one too. I mean, I've heard plenty of stories of him talking about, living in a van, smoking weed all day, just hoping that somebody would give him a chance, essentially.
And then he breaks into comedy because he gains a bunch of weight because he kept getting typecast as the jock or whatever. Yeah. So he's like, I'll get fat and I'll be funny.
Yeah, exactly. And he was talented enough. Ryan Reynolds is another one. His high school drama teacher told him he'd never be an actor, and now he's got a star on the Walk of Fame. But yeah, and you don't get to that level without being incredibly passionate. But it's funny that you brought up the parents too, because Alyssa Milano's been like talking all this shit on TV about what you can and can't do politically. Uh-huh. I'm not going to talk about how I feel about that, but I am going to say, like, Alyssa Milano's mother was a fashion designer and her father was a music and film editor.
Yeah.
And she got her first paid acting gig when she was 7.
Yeah.
Like, she has no idea what it's like to be a normal person. Yep. Like, you know.
There's so many
her
people.
Life from day one has been just completely different than our lives.
There's so many people that
like,
if you actually pay attention to like where they're coming from, like you'll find out, okay, their dad was a director, or their dad was a producer, or their mom was involved in set design, or like there's people already in the industry somewhere.
Paul Thomas Anderson's dad did voiceovers for CBS commercials for like 30 years.
Yeah.
You know, like it's you wouldn't look at that as, and he didn't. His first movie was an independent film that somebody kind of just discovered. So it wasn't like that was a huge leg up in the business.
But if you've got somebody that knows somebody, that's the big thing with people going to film school is like, you don't necessarily go to film school to learn film. You go to film school to find other people that are passionate about making film and then make those connections with people so that you can eventually develop a team that makes films.
Yeah, the thing that we're trying to do right now.
It has nothing to do with learning film. You can do all of that on your own. It has everything to do with those connections that you can make.
Yeah, no, it's funny. We're actually in the midst of it now. Like I just said, we're trying to build you and I are trying to build our own team. And it's funny. I remember my mom had a boyfriend, and the first thing I wanted to do in the entertainment business was comedian.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing I wanted to be a comedian, and I also wanted to be a documentary filmmaker because I had this one idea for a documentary. I still do, and one day I'll do it, but it's not as much of a need now. But I remember telling my mom's boyfriend that I wanted to do that, and he was like, and I told him I was going to go to school for it, and he was like, "Fuck that! Buy a camera, go out there and film some shit, and meet a bunch of people who like the same stuff as you." And just film shit together, because that's how you're going to learn. You're going to learn by just doing it.
Yeah.
All they're going to do at film school is that exact same thing and take your money.
Yeah.
Which is fine, if you want to do that, if your dad's willing to pay for it.
The only thing is you get to work with much better equipment.
Yeah.
Stuff that you would never be able to afford. But how does that help you if it's stuff you can never afford and then you're out in the real world, get tossed out in the real world, and you're using consumer grade?
Yeah, your first student film looks awesome.
Yeah, I shot this on a Red. Well, what are you shooting now? My phone.
Script's really good though.
Yeah,
I'm telling you.
The dialogue, it sells it.
Oh, this is great. We'll have to do another one.
Yeah.
Soon.
Yeah.
We'll have to. Maybe we'll do the next episode after Endgame comes out, and we'll go see Endgame.
Yeah. I won't see that the first weekend because I think it's pretty much sold out at this point, but I will see it the following weekend, and then we can convene.
Okay, cool. That works. This was fun. We'll see you next week.
All right.
Or next time.
Whatever. Bye.